When we hear the name Imhotep, what comes to mind? For many, it is a name whispered in the dark corridors of a Hollywood film. It conjures images of a fearsome mummy, brought back to life by ancient curses and dark magic. We see a powerful sorcerer, wrapped in linen bandages, seeking revenge on those who disturbed his eternal rest. This version of Imhotep has become a famous monster of the silver screen. He is a character of pure fiction, designed to thrill and to frighten us. But this popular image, however entertaining, hides a much more fascinating and important truth. The real Imhotep was not a creature of nightmares, but a man of incredible genius. The true story of Imhotep is far more inspiring than any horror film. He was not a villain, but a hero of his time. He was a real person who lived in ancient Egypt over 4,600 years ago. His accomplishments were so extraordinary that they shaped the course of human history. He was a commoner who rose to become one of the most powerful and respected figures in the land. His mind was a brilliant tapestry of different skills and talents. To think of him only as a mummy is to miss the story of one of the world's first true geniuses. His life was not about curses but about creation, knowledge and incredible innovation for his time. To truly understand Imhotep, we must look beyond the myths. We must travel back in time to an ancient world of wonder and discovery. He was what we might call a Renaissance man, but he lived thousands of years before the Renaissance even began. He was a brilliant architect, a wise physician, a powerful priest, and a trusted advisor to a king. He mastered so many different fields of knowledge, much like the great Leonardo da Vinci did centuries later in Italy. Imhotep's influence stretched across architecture, medicine, and government. He was a true polymath, a person whose expertise spanned a significant number of different subject areas. His story begins not in a cursed tomb, but in the vibrant court of a powerful pharaoh. He was not a creature of darkness but a beacon of light and wisdom. His legacy is not one of fear but of inspiration. He showed what a single human mind is capable of achieving. He laid the foundations for architectural wonders that still leave us breathless today. He wrote medical texts that were startlingly advanced for their time. This is the real Imhotep. He was not a monster from a movie, but one of the most remarkable human beings who has ever lived, and his story is one that deserves to be told. To understand the man, we must first understand his world. Imhotep lived during a period we now call the Old Kingdom of Egypt. It was a time of great change and incredible ambition. Around the year 2650 BC, the land of Egypt was ruled by a pharaoh who was seen as more than just a king. He was considered a living god on earth, a direct link between the people and the heavens. The entire society was built around this central belief. The pharaoh's power was absolute, and his duty was to maintain order and harmony, a concept the Egyptians called Ma'at. This was a world filled with gods, from Ra, the sun god, to Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Life in ancient Egypt was deeply connected to the Nile River. Every year the river would flood its banks, leaving behind rich, dark soil. This fertile land allowed the Egyptians to grow abundant crops. This agricultural wealth was the foundation of their civilization. It allowed them to build great cities, support large armies, and create breathtaking works of art. The rhythm of the river, the flood and the harvest, shaped their calendar, their religion, and their entire way of life. It was in this stable and prosperous environment that a mind like Imhotep's could truly flourish and reach its full potential. The society had the resources to support grand visions. The world of Imhotep was one of great contrasts. On one hand, it was a world of deep faith and tradition. The Egyptians had a complex system of beliefs about the gods and the afterlife. They believed that death was not an end, but a journey to another world. This belief drove them to build magnificent tombs and to develop elaborate rituals for burial. On the other hand, it was a time of incredible practical innovation. They were brilliant engineers, skilled mathematicians, and keen observers of the natural world. They developed a system of writing, hieroglyphics, to record their history, their laws, and their knowledge for future generations. It was into this dynamic and powerful kingdom that Imhotep was born. He was not born into the royal family or the high nobility. He was a commoner, a man who had to rely on his own intelligence and skill to make his way in the world. This makes his eventual rise to power all the more remarkable. He entered a society that was ready for big ideas, a society that had the wealth, the manpower, and the ambition to turn grand dreams into reality. The stage was set for a person of exceptional talent to emerge and leave a permanent mark on history. Imhotep was that person, and his time had come. Imhotep's remarkable journey from commoner to legend began under the reign of one particular pharaoh, Djoser. Djoser was the ruler of Egypt's third dynasty, a king with a vision for his kingdom. He wanted to build a legacy that would last for eternity. But a great king needs a great advisor, someone with the wisdom and skill to turn royal ambitions into solid reality. In Imhotep, Pharaoh Djoser found more than just an advisor. He found a true partner. It is not known exactly how Imhotep first came to the king's attention, but his immense intelligence must have been impossible to ignore. He quickly earned the pharaoh's complete trust. Soon, Imhotep was appointed to the most important position in the kingdom, second only to the pharaoh himself. He became the vizier. The vizier was the chief minister of the state, responsible for overseeing the entire administration of the country. He was the head of the treasury, the minister of justice, and the chief of public works. It was a role of immense power and responsibility. Imhotep managed the kingdom's granaries, ensuring the people had food. He supervised the collection of taxes, which funded the state's grand projects. He was the pharaoh's right-hand man, the one who made the machinery of government run smoothly. But Imhotep's duties went far beyond simple administration. He was also a man of deep spiritual importance. He was given the title of High Priest of Heliopolis, one of the most sacred cities in Egypt. This city was the center of worship for the sun god Ra. As High Priest, Imhotep was the chief interpreter of the god's will. He advised the pharaoh on religious matters and presided over sacred ceremonies. This combination of political power and spiritual authority made him an incredibly influential figure. He was not just running the country, he was guiding its soul, connecting the earthly kingdom with the divine realm. The relationship between Imhotep and Djoser was one of deep mutual respect and collaboration. The pharaoh recognized the extraordinary mind he had at his service, and he gave Imhotep the freedom to innovate. This trust would lead to the creation of something the world had never seen before. Djoser wanted a tomb that would secure his place in the afterlife and stand as a symbol of his power forever. He turned to his brilliant vizier, Imhotep, not just to manage the project, but to dream up its very design. This single request would set in motion a chain of events that would change the face of the planet. Every pharaoh before Djoser had been buried in a simple rectangular tomb called a mastaba. These structures were made from mud bricks, which were easy to produce but not very durable. They were flat-topped, single-story buildings built over an underground burial chamber. For a king as ambitious as Djoser, a simple mud brick mastaba was not enough. He wanted a monument that would reach towards the heavens, a structure that would last for all time. He tasked Imhotep with designing a tomb that was worthy of a god king. Imhotep did not just improve upon the old design, he completely reimagined it, creating something entirely new. Imhotep's brilliant idea began with the basic mastaba shape. But instead of stopping at one level, he decided to stack smaller and smaller mastabas on top of one another. He began with a large square mastaba as the base. Then he placed a slightly smaller one on top of it. He repeated this process several more times, creating a series of 6 steps rising from the desert sand. The result was a stunning terraced structure that looked like a giant stairway. This was no accident. The design was deeply symbolic, representing a stairway for the pharaoh's soul to ascend and join the immortal gods in the sky. This new creation was the Step Pyramid. Located at Saqqara, the royal cemetery of the time, it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It towered over the landscape, reaching a height of over 60 meters, or about 200 feet. It was the centerpiece of a huge complex, surrounded by a massive wall. Within the wall, Imhotep designed courtyards, temples and chapels, all meant for the king's use in the afterlife. The entire complex was a model of the royal palace, a place where the pharaoh's spirit could continue to reign for eternity. It was a city for the dead, designed with breathtaking vision and precision. The construction of the Step Pyramid was a massive undertaking. It required a level of planning and organization that was unprecedented in human history. Imhotep had to manage a huge workforce of laborers, craftsmen, and engineers. He had to organize the quarrying of immense quantities of stone and its transportation to the building site. He had to solve complex logistical and engineering problems every step of the way. The successful completion of the pyramid was a testament not only to his brilliant design, but also to his extraordinary skills as a project manager. He had created the world's first large-scale stone building, a true wonder of the ancient world. The step pyramid was more than just a new shape for a tomb. Its true revolution lay in the material Imhotep chose to use. Before him, large buildings in Egypt were made from mud brick, wood, and reeds. These materials were, readily available, but they were not permanent. They decayed over time, worn down by the wind and the rain. Imhotep made a monumental decision. He would build Djoser's tomb entirely out of stone. This was a radical idea. While stone had been used for small elements like doorways and paving, no one had ever attempted to construct an entire building of this size from cut stone blocks. This shift from mud brick to stone was a turning point in the history of architecture. Stone was durable, majestic, and everlasting. It was the perfect material for a monument intended to last for eternity. But building with stone presented enormous new challenges. It was incredibly heavy and difficult to cut and shape with the simple copper tools of the time. Imhotep had to invent new techniques for quarrying, transporting, and lifting massive limestone blocks. He essentially created the rulebook for stone masonry and large-scale construction, developing methods that would be used by Egyptian builders for thousands of years to come. Imhotep's genius is also visible in the small details of the complex. He designed stone columns that were made to look like bundles of reeds or papyrus stalks, materials familiar to the Egyptians. He carved stone ceilings to imitate the appearance of wooden logs. It was as if he was translating the old architectural language of plants and wood into the new, permanent language of stone. This shows his deep understanding of both tradition and innovation. He was not just a builder, he was an artist, carefully crafting a new style that was both beautiful and deeply symbolic of Egyptian culture. The impact of Imhotep's architectural revolution was immediate and profound. The step pyramid became the prototype for all the pyramids that followed. The magnificent pyramids at Giza, built a few generations later, owe their existence to the pioneering work of Imhotep. He had shown that it was possible to build on a colossal scale using stone. He unleashed the potential of Egyptian engineering and set a new standard for royal monuments. By choosing stone, he ensured that the legacy of his pharaoh and his own genius would endure through the millennia, standing as a silent testament to his incredible vision. As if being a revolutionary architect and a powerful vizier were not enough, Imhotep also holds another extraordinary title. He is widely considered to be the first physician in history known by name, long before Hippocrates in ancient Greece, who is often called the father of medicine. Imhotep was practicing and writing about medicine in Egypt. In an age when sickness was often blamed on angry gods or evil spirits, Imhotep took a more practical and scientific approach. This is perhaps his most surprising and most modern accomplishment. He sought to understand the body and its ailments through observation and rational diagnosis. Ancient Egyptian medicine was a mixture of magic and practical remedies. Doctors, known as S.N.W., would often use magical spells and amulets alongside their treatments. They believed that incantations could help drive away the demons causing a disease. However, they also had a great deal of practical knowledge. They could set broken bones, perform simple surgeries, and had a wide knowledge of medicinal plants and herbs. They understood the importance of hygiene and cleanliness. It was a complex system where science and superstition existed side by side, a common feature in the early history of medicine around the world. What made Imhotep so special was his apparent focus on the scientific side of medicine. Later Egyptians revered him as a master healer, a god of medicine. While none of his medical writings have been found with his name directly on them, he is credited by later generations as the author of an incredible medical document. This text, known today as the Edwin Smith Papyrus, is a world away from magical spells. It is a practical clinical manual that discusses injuries and their treatment in a surprisingly logical and systematic way. It shows a mind that was interested in causes and effects, not curses. This approach marked a significant departure from the purely magical thinking of the time. Imhotep, or the school of thought he represents, treated the patient's body as a system that could be understood. He examined wounds, classified injuries, and provided detailed instructions for treatment. He made diagnoses based on what he could see and feel. He was not just a priest praying for divine intervention. He was a scientist, observing the natural world and using his intellect to find solutions. This rational approach to healing is the very foundation of modern medicine, and it appears to have begun with this ancient Egyptian genius. The Edwin Smith Papyrus is one of the most remarkable documents to survive from the ancient world. Although the copy we have today was written about 1,000 years after Imhotep lived, linguistic analysis shows that it is a copy of a much older text, one originating from his time in the Old Kingdom. Many scholars believe that the original author was Imhotep himself. The papyrus is not a collection of spells, but a medical textbook on trauma surgery. It describes 48 different cases of injuries, starting from the head and moving systematically down the body. It is organized, clear, and astonishingly rational. For each of the 48 cases, the text follows a strict format. It begins with a title, such as instructions concerning a gaping wound in the head. Then, it details the examination, where the physician is told to observe the patient and feel the injury. This is followed by a diagnosis, where the doctor must state, an ailment which I will treat, an ailment with which I will contend, or an ailment not to be treated. This last category is extraordinary. It shows that ancient doctors knew their own limitations and could recognize when an injury was too severe to be cured, a form of medical honesty that is truly remarkable for the period. The treatments described in the papyrus are also incredibly practical. For a gaping wound, the text advises stitching it closed with a needle and thread. For a broken nose, it recommends inserting plugs of linen into the nostrils to hold it in place. For a dislocated jaw, it gives clear instructions on how to maneuver it back into position. These are not magical cures. They are sound medical procedures. The text also contains the first known descriptions of the brain, the meninges, the membranes covering the brain, and the cerebrospinal fluid. The author correctly linked brain injuries to problems in other parts of the body, showing a basic understanding of the nervous system. The Edwin Smith Papyrus provides a unique glimpse into a brilliant medical mind at work. It shows a commitment to observation, diagnosis, and practical treatment that was thousands of years ahead of its time. While the Greeks, particularly Hippocrates, are often credited with separating medicine from magic, this papyrus suggests that the Egyptians and perhaps Imhotep himself had already taken that crucial step a full 2,000 years earlier. It stands as a powerful piece of evidence for Imhotep's reputation as a great physician, a man who looked at the human body not with fear, but with a desire to understand and to heal. Imhotep's genius was not confined to building pyramids and healing the sick. He was also a masterful statesman and a deeply influential spiritual leader. As vizier, he stood at the very center of the Egyptian government. He was the pharaoh's most trusted executive, responsible for the day-to-day operation of the entire kingdom. This required an incredible breadth of knowledge and skill. He oversaw the legal system, acting as the chief judge of the land. His wisdom and fairness in settling disputes would have been legendary, forming a cornerstone of social stability and order throughout Egypt under Djoser's rule. His administrative duties were vast and complex. He managed the national treasury, controlling the flow of goods and resources that fueled the Egyptian economy. This included overseeing the collection of taxes from farmers and craftsmen across the land. He also directed major state projects, from the construction of temples and canals to the organization of mining expeditions into the desert for valuable turquoise and copper. To manage all of this required a mind capable of immense organization and long-term planning. Imhotep was, in essence, the chief operating officer of an entire civilization, ensuring its prosperity and smooth functioning. Beyond his political power, Imhotep held one of the most important religious titles in the kingdom, High Priest of Heliopolis. This was not just an honorary position. Heliopolis was the ancient center of learning and theology, home to the cult of the sun god Ra, the most powerful deity in the Egyptian pantheon. As high priest, Imhotep was the chief scholar and theologian of his time. He would have been responsible for the complex rituals and ceremonies that were believed to maintain the cosmic order and ensure the rising of the sun each day. His role was to bridge the gap between the human world and the divine. This unique combination of roles, as chief administrator, chief justice, and chief priest, gave Imhotep a holistic view of the kingdom. He understood how law, religion, agriculture, and architecture were all interconnected. His wisdom was not limited to one field but encompassed the entire life of the nation. He was a philosopher king in all but name, advising his pharaoh not just on practical matters, but on the very direction and moral fabric of their society. He was a pillar of the state, a stabilizing force whose intelligence and integrity helped to define one of the most glorious eras of ancient Egypt. Imhotep's accomplishments were so great that after his death, he began a journey that no other commoner in Egyptian history ever completed. He was transformed from a man into a god. This process, known as deification, was usually reserved only for pharaohs. The fact that Imhotep achieved this status shows the immense and lasting respect he commanded. For centuries after his lifetime, his memory was honored. Scribes would pour out a few drops of water from their pots as a tribute to him before they began to write, acknowledging him as their patron and master. He became a symbol of wisdom and learning. About 2,000 years after he lived, during the late period of Egypt, Imhotep's status was officially elevated. He was worshipped as a full deity, the god of medicine and healing. He was seen as the son of Ptah, the god of creation and craftsman, a fitting lineage for a master builder. The Greeks who later came to Egypt identified Imhotep with their own god of medicine, Asclepius. This shows how his reputation for healing had spread far beyond the borders of Egypt. Temples were built in his honor, most notably at Memphis and on the island of Philae, becoming important centers of pilgrimage for the sick. People from all over the ancient world would travel to these temples, hoping for a cure from the divine Imhotep. They would sleep within the temple grounds in a practice called incubation, hoping that the god would visit them in their dreams and reveal a remedy for their illness. Archaeologists have found numerous statues and offerings left at these sites from grateful people who believed they had been healed by him. These pilgrims left behind mummified ibises and clay models of diseased limbs, tangible prayers to the man who had become a god of healing. He had become a beacon of hope for countless generations. Today, Imhotep's legacy continues to inspire us. He is a timeless example of what one person can achieve through intellect, creativity, and hard work. He reminds us that the greatest advances in civilization are made by those who can see beyond the limits of their own time. He was an architect who designed for eternity, a physician who chose science over superstition, and a leader who governed with wisdom. The stone pyramid he built still stands, a testament to his engineering genius. The medical knowledge he recorded laid the groundwork for a rational approach to healing. Imhotep was the original Renaissance man, a true giant of human history whose light has never faded. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video for more fascinating history content. Your support helps us bring more incredible stories from history to life.